Hey, welcome to Mike the Baptist. Glad everybody made it back. It's a big day here at Mike the Baptist. We don't have many big days, but today we have one. First, let me say, welcome to my buddy H.D. Jones.
Good to be here.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
H and I were talking just a little bit ago. There's something about the Red Oak Studios that when you get sit down in here, you just automatically get sleepy.
I feel like I need eyelid surgery because they just want to droop, you know.
I tell you what, we'll have somebody come in someday and hold them up for us.
I had a professor in college that actually had to have eyelid surgery.
Really?
Because he could be wide awake and it looked like he was half asleep.
I've been missing these stories. I'll just tell you right now. Well, speaking of big days,
guess who's back?
What's
Jason
up,
Ricciardi is
everybody?
back. He has been gone.
Yep.
He's been gone. And anyway, first of all, welcome back.
Yeah.
And second of all,
He's the Achilles heel to
he
Mike
is,
the Baptist.
he is the Achilles heel. That's a very good. You're more awake than you thought you
Right.
were.
All right. Let's come around.
Speaking of Achilles heel, briefly, Jason, would you like to tell everyone that's listening who doesn't know? Well, there are people that don't know why you have not been here.
So I'll just let you know, it's not cool. It's not like a good story. But we were playing volleyball for our church, and we have a massive league. It's 120 players or somewhere around there, 10, 12 teams, something like that. Mm-hmm. And all season long, my team is terrible. And we ended the season terrible, but we won one game. Well, this game we were in, we're down to the final 12 seconds. And I'm thinking, man, it is an opportunity for us to pick up W. We've been bad all season. And I've been diving on the court all season long, chasing balls down. And it wasn't even anything cool. I was backpedaling, just gently backpedaling. One foot hit the other. Instead of planting like this, I planted like this. And then my Achilles just went, tore it in half.
Yep.
And, I've always heard when major joints, when they go, the ligaments like that go,
right.
You can hear the sound of it popping.
Yes.
And
you did?
It was audible. It felt like somebody kicked me in the back of the leg. I actually thought a kid had run onto the court.
Mm-hmm.
He was looking for Sarah.
I sat there for a second, and I looked to the left and the right, and I was like, there's no little kid around me. And then the realization began to dawn, oh, that's not good.
No.
And I have video of it. It's not cool. It's not like I was doing anything awesome. Mm-hmm. And it just looked like I tripped over myself and then laid there like a baby.
So, like, in your family, when y'all are old, you'll sit around looking at that video?
No. Nobody wants to see that video.
It's interesting. But anyway, you're kind of almost better. You're getting close. Still got the big boot on. And
yeah, it's a long process with the Achilles. It's upwards of a year before you're really kind of back to normal. As far as lower body injuries go, it's one of the most significant, if not the most significant, just based on recovery.
He's an overachiever.
Well,
if you're going to do it, don't do it halfway.
So at my house, which is near the studio, in one of my, I have a T-shirt drawer. It's just packed full of T-shirts. I actually have 2 or 3 T-shirt drawers. But anyway, in this one drawer, I have a yellow. It may be volleyball. It's a jersey that you get. I think it's got the number 41 or 43 on it. That was the last year I played.
1943?
Church sports. No, not 1943. When I was 41 or 3. Because I think I broke a toe or something, and then the year before I broke something else trying to do that. I thought, I'm going to do that.
We had a kid go on a mission trip, and he was a quarterback of one of the local football teams, and he ran up a down escalator in flip-flops, broke his toe, and then missed first several games of the season.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Wearing flip-flops, running up and down an escalator. Yeah. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's a good way to lose toes.
He was a good quarterback, too, and he missed several games of the season because of that.
Did he have trouble with, like, the charts, though? Because of his head? Anyway. We're glad you're back. And
it's good to be back.
Glad you're getting healed up, etc. www.mikethebaptist.com. It's a website. Just go to it. It's a website. Comments at mikethebaptist.com. Send us an email. You know what? I got another email, and I don't know what I did with it. I'll look that up for the next episode. I forgot what it was. Oh, no, it was a follow-up to the swaddle thing that I brought up on a recent episode.
Yes, I heard about this.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Actually, the fellow that asked the question about is it hard to witness to family and all, sent an email and said he'd found something about swaddle is in there somewhere else, and Anyway, so he talked to you about it too?
Is this an Inny or Outty? Is that what you're talking
It
about?
wasn't Inny or Outty.
Okay.
Swaddling. I asked, was swaddling in the Bible or not? And so, anyway, I won't bring it up because I have a thing about that. Like, I don't think you should bind babies, but I'm not bringing it up. So if you send it, we'll ask it. Plain and simple.
Easy enough.
On the front porch today, I thought it might be interesting. It may not be, but it might be interesting. I always kind of wonder about these topics because I think I have these brilliant ideas for topics. You know, once in a while I get a little assistance from some friends who'll tell me something, but then I get to thinking just before we tape, what if they don't even know anything about this particular topic? But then I thought, well, that could be funny too. So we'll just go with it. Today on the front porch, I would like for us to talk about where our families came from to settle in this area. Now, I'm not talking about, Ireland, France, Africa, wherever, where your people came from. I'm talking about once they got here off the Mayflower and all. How did your family, if you know, get to Middle Tennessee? Jason?
Well, it's real easy for me. I am the only Ricciardi in Middle Tennessee. Obviously, my wife and my kids, but my wife is originally from Bowling Green, and I'm originally from Texas, and we met via me hitting a deer at 55 miles an hour on a motorcycle.
I do remember the story.
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit.
Before you go on, let me rephrase the question a bit, because I actually thought about this a little while ago, that I may run into this particular situation, because I knew that you were originally from Texas. So why don't you go back to Texas and explain how your people got there?
How we got to Texas?
Before you ran over the deer. So
my mom's family, her dad was in the military. He actually lied about his age. He caught the tail end of World War II and then Vietnam and Korea. He was like 16, 17 years old when he caught the tail end of World War II. He was in the military, and my dad's side of the family, his dad was in the military. And so it's just kind of crazy. They kept moving all over the place, Alaska, Oklahoma, Texas, various places. And somehow they just settled in Killeen, Texas, which it's no longer called Fort Hood. I can't remember what it's called now. They just renamed it, but it's one of the largest, if not the largest, military base in the world. And so my dad, my grandpa made a garage there, and my dad kept it alive when my grandpa was overseas in Germany, and that's how we ended up there.
Interesting. That was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So, did I miss the part? Was I thinking about something else when you told the part about where they came from to get to Texas? I must have. I was daydreaming about something else. They just kind of
traveled all over the place.
Oh, okay.
Alaska, both my grandfathers were in Alaska for a while. Both of them were in Oklahoma for a while. Both of them were in Texas, and they just kind of, my dad's side of the family ended up in Oklahoma.
Is that an Italian name?
Yes.
Okay. Until I met you, I had never heard that name before.
I was in Myrtle Beach, and there was a Ricciardi ice cream shop.
Yeah.
And I
Really?
took a picture of it and sent it to him.
Neat.
Yeah.
I was in D.C., and there was a Ricciardi's clothing store.
I guess most people came to the East Coast first, and then kind of, I guess you'd have to, wouldn't you? You'd have to land there and then move this way.
Unless you're Hawaiian.
That's a good point. You would have come from the other side, wouldn't you? See, these are things I did not think about. Okay, well, so anyway, and then you ran over the deer and
yeah.
And
but my mom,
yes, and messed Sarah's whole world up. Not really. We kidding, sort of.
Well, no. I mean, yeah. I appreciate her giving up on her hopes and dreams and marrying me all those years ago. But my parents actually ended up here, obviously through my dad having Alzheimer's, and they ended up moving in with us, and we're able to help see my mom through my dad passing a few years ago during COVID, and my mom still lives with us, and it's a real blessing. Like, my kids get to know my mom, and they got to know my dad before he passed because of Alzheimer's. So it was actually an interesting how God worked that out. It's
kind of interesting too. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but you've started another branch of Ricciardi's here in this area. It's kind of interesting how that works, and you don't really think about that until a lot of your people start disappearing, and then you realize you're kind of out here on you. I'm that way here in Middle Tennessee. I'm kind of my own little island. I have one cousin out here. Anyway, interesting. Well, I'm glad you're here.
It's good to be here.
Glad you're back to MTB and living in Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
Because it'd be a long commute if you weren't living here to your job.
I could Skype in or something.
You could. H, do you have any idea where you're?
Not a clue.
Okay. Can you take a shot at it?
It's a really interesting conversation. Well, I live on my granddad's farm, and his dad lived on the farm right behind that. So I don't know where his folks came from. So yeah, I go back. J.V. Jones lived on that property, and then my granddad and my dad and me and then my boys. So my mom's family, they're from a long off place called Gullaville.
Gullaville.
Yeah, they're from Gullaville, and down on the dry creek, which probably wasn't too dry this week. But I mean, all her family was kind of in that Nashville area. She was born in Nashville. Dad went to, my grandparents on my dad's side, they went to Detroit for a little while during the Depression, I think, to work in the factory. Then they had twins. It was back in the day when you had not tickets, but you had something to get food. You had rations.
Oh.
Ration tickets.
Oh, yeah.
So my granddad was real stressed out because of these twins and trying to get enough food for them and everything. But yeah, most everything I know is Middle Tennessee.
Really? So we're going to have to help you figure out where those people came from to get to here.
Yeah, I might not want to know.
Well, you may not. You may not. So yeah, obviously y'all don't talk much about like what probably happened is somebody in your past, in your family.
Escape convict?
Got
yes,
mad.
they killed somebody. They
got
moved
mad.
out here and changed their name and started a new branch out
Probably.
here. But you know what? We'll I'll help you. I'll help you find where you came from.
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
This is what you've been missing with me being gone.
Okay.
But interestingly so, you're bringing that up.
Yes.
You know the DNA tests that they do that
I've
are
done it.
23andMe and all those things?
Mhm.
Do you know they're actually finding criminals because of that?
Yes.
Like in a huge way. They're finding lots and lots of criminals, and they're solving cold cases.
Yeah, because you can't disappear if you have your DNA results out there.
Well, it's not even necessarily them, but it's their close relatives that are doing it, and then they're finding familial matches.
Yes.
And so they're actually able to solve cold cases because of that.
Oh, I know.
Several people have
I
found
know all
children
about
they
this.
didn't know they had.
I've got a whole family or two or three that I didn't know I had until I did that because I never knew who my biological father was. But
Hey.
yeah.
Clarify what you mean by
two or three
families.
Well,
you're not making the families. They're just related to you.
No, I made one. Yes. But
Okay.
even that story is it branches off a lot of different strange ways. So the deeper I got into trying to figure
This
out
is
who
why I
I
don't
was,
want you helping me.
yeah, the deeper I got, the more it just kind of went. I mean, I'll tell you about it sometime. It's
Look,
too.
you might
it's
be a
too.
redneck if your family tree doesn't branch. So if yours branches, it's okay.
It wasn't exactly that. It's just it's hard to explain. Someday off the air, I'll tell you. It's not. We don't really need to go into that there. Okay, so I'm in Middle Tennessee, but I'm from Northwest Arkansas, which is where I base what I'm telling on. The people in my families that came there, ironically, came from Southern Tennessee and Northern Alabama. It's a big timber area. People down there are timber people, and they still are to this day. And the people in my family that migrated out to Northwest Arkansas were timber people, and they moved into this really rough, undeveloped area of the Ozarks, and they did timber. So they cleared a lot of the land there where I'm from, and that's where a lot of those people came from. A few of them associated with my family got involved with some people from Missouri, I think, a little bit, and then
That's the Show Me State.
The Show Me State, yes, a whole nother story. But then, the DNA thing I did, I found out my actual biological bloodline on my father's side, a lot of those people came from DeKalb County, Tennessee. So
If Missouri is the Show Me State, is Arkansas the I'll Show You?
they don't call it that,
Yeah.
but they do that.
Yeah.
No, we're the natural state.
The Naturalist?
No, well, in areas that you
That's a
have that
different
too.
story on Mike the Baptist.
So anyway, long story short, we have 3 new.
Yes.
It's a good story.
Thanks. We have 3 new groups of cemetery plots that we've started here. I'll say it that way. Okay, so all this didn't go exactly where I thought it might, but I'll go back to saying, Jason, we're glad you're back. HD, I'll follow up, help you find out where you came from, and then I'll share with you guys offline sometime. My tree, the tree and the roots.
Are you kin to Jimmy Hoffa?
I may not be, but my wife did her DNA too, and she's related to everybody.
Yeah.
Every other day.
Everybody. Yeah.
Everybody. She's related to everybody.
So you're saying your wife is related to you?
I didn't say that.
We said everybody.
I
Maybe
did
one
say
of his
that.
other families he helped create.
Once in a while, she'll say, "Hey, I'm so and so showed up. I don't want to know." So they're on both of ours back there down the line. Don't want to know. Move along. Speaking of move along, we'll take a break. Come back. Talk about stuff found in the Bible. When does a coffee mug become more than just a coffee mug? When does something as simple as a mug become a part of your life? Well, never actually. It's just a coffee mug. But it's okay to have a favorite mug without thinking too much about how important it is. However, the MTB mug does have a bit deeper meaning. When you buy an MTB coffee mug, you're helping keep Mike the Baptist coming to you on a regular basis. We don't sell our programs. We just make them and send them out, hoping you get a little joy and meaning out of the fun, and that somebody out there happens to hear or see it who really might need it that day. It's that simple. Consider visiting MikeTheBaptist.com and purchasing a mug for yourself or as a gift to someone. We promise to pay our light bills with the money and to keep cranking out Mike the Baptist programs for you. MikeTheBaptist.com. You can order the coffee mugs there, 11 or 15 ounce, and now available in left-handed. You're welcome. We're back. We're going to talk about some stuff we found in the Bible. Plain and simple.
That's all we get about the Bible?
No, not completely.
Okay.
I'm trying to not get too carried away, but actually, yeah, I am going to get carried away because it's a good book, and I'll talk about it every time because it's such a good book. There's a lot of stuff in there. Who was I talking to? I talk to a lot of people, so I don't keep a list, but I was talking to somebody about material for reading or something, and they were talking about about needing to get some material, and I thought, oh, the Bible's got material in it. Pretty much all you got to do with that thing is open it up and read a little bit, and stuff just jumps out of there. You think he designed that way on purpose?
Dude, there's always something that catches me.
Yep.
Always something.
And you do this for a
I
living.
do it quite a bit, yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is.
Since you're already talking about it, why don't you talk about what we found this week
Well,
in the Bible?
We've been looking at the book of Leviticus, which in my opinion is really about how God's people can come back to their faith. If you think about it this way, Exodus is that picture where God says, I'm going to bring you out of bondage. So he saves them, takes them through the Red Sea, which is really a picture of baptism, takes them to the mountain, gives them the law. The law is not required to make them holy, but the law is required to show them how to live holy lives. So in other words, I made you my child because I brought you out. Now I'm going to give you the rules to show you how to live as one of my children. And then you come to Leviticus. And I mean, honestly, the first 7 chapters we've been reading about this week, not that any of the Bible is boring, but it causes you to have to focus because you've got the burnt offering and then the sin offering. And it kind of says the same things over and over. But really, it shows the importance that God is willing to bring us back. He's willing to forgive us, that he has his unconditional love. And so as I was thinking about that, I was like, the beginning of the Bible, Genesis 1 and 2, kind of starts with this idea of no sin. And then the end of the Bible has us in this perfected state where we have no sin, and the rest of the Bible is us dealing with our sin. And one of the things that's kind of cool in Leviticus is it kind of talks about the need for the leaders and the priests to kind of lead by example and repent. And how important is that for us? I mean, you're a leader somewhere. You're a leader either in your family or at your work. How important is it for us to recognize our own sinfulness and to get our life straight so that we can help other people get better?
I think it's interesting in that passage that you're talking about. In the book of Leviticus, there's really this progression of increasing responsibility. There's the individual has responsibility, then the community at large has responsibility, but in there, we see that there are leaders that have an increased level of responsibility. And one of the things, when I first was called to ministry, one of the passages of scriptures that just jumped off the page at me was, so you believe there's one God. Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder. And then there's another one that says that basically, if you're a leader, you're going to be responsible for those that you're leading and the way that you're leading them. And Leviticus really kind of gets at that idea where you're responsible for how people lead. And I think it's interesting that the Bible kind of brings that out by singling out that group of people for extra responsibility. And as far as your influence goes, I think you're going to be judged more severely based on how much influence you have. If you're not in any leadership role, for you to sin has a lesser impact on those around you than if you're the pastor of a megachurch and you sin in some sort of open and public way. It's going to affect a larger group of people. And the Bible kind of brings that idea out by singling out leaders for extra opportunities for repentance and extra understanding that, what you do affects everybody around you in a huge way.
Thinking about resigning. That's what I'm hearing Jason go, you need to go ahead and resign now. It does put a lot of pressure on you, but at the same time, God's the one that calls us in these positions of leadership, and all you got to do is just keep trusting Him. You're not going to do it perfectly. All you guys are husbands and your fathers, and if you were to be honest, you probably messed up along the way. But again, back to this idea, God's atonement is enough, but He's always creating that avenue for us to come back to Him.
The whole Bible is that story over and over and over.
If
you pay attention, it's you get involved in these big Bible stories, but then you realize every single one of them just about is about people kind of getting lost on their way or doing something wrong.
Yep.
And then I guess Him giving you an opportunity to get back. Pretty well every day at some point I think about, why in the world would He keep giving me chances? Because I know myself.
Right.
And it's kind of amazing to me. It really is. I mean, I'm kind of act like I'm not very serious, but there are moments where I do have some serious thoughts, and that's one of them. Like, I don't understand, knowing myself, how He could just kind of keep giving me another chance. And I'm sure, even though you guys are preachers, that you have that same feeling, I think. I may be wrong about that, but I don't think I am.
We like to think of this in the negative sense, and there's an analogy in my head that works really well. It may not work for you guys. You may hear it and be like,
it may not.
Let me just go ahead and go.
Probably not. But
take a shot at it anyway.
If you throw a rock in a still pond, the point of impact, it has the greatest effect on the surrounding area. And as you go out, there's less and less impact, but the larger the rock that you send into the water, the greater those waves go. And so I think that's kind of like that with ministry. And if you're a leader of some sort, you're not just this little tiny rock that's making a little impact on the world around it. You're this ginormous rock that when you toss it out there, it makes huge ripples and they expand really far. Now, we have a tendency to think of that in the negative way, only that your negative actions negatively affect those around you. But there's also the opportunity from the flip side of that. You have the opportunity as a leader to make a huge positive impact.
Even not necessarily just as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you don't often point out to people the positive impact, but the negative you're very quick
We're
to
quick
say.
to point that out.
Yeah. But
I'm
that's
good at
huh?
I'm good at that negative.
Of course you
stuff.
are.
Yeah.
Spiritual gift of negative
I
encouragement.
can,
Yes.
I can pick that up right quick.
But at least you know your gifts.
And again, in my context, you look at it and you go, it can scare you to death if you think about the magnitude of that which God calls you. I mean, being a dad, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my biggest fear, like my boys, we probably butted heads more than I did with my daughter, but it was because I didn't want them to be the same doofus that I was.
Right. Right.
So I wanted to beat
How'd that
it.
work out for you?
I know. I tried.
Is that working?
I wanted to beat that out of them. Really, literally, I wanted to beat it out of them. I was like, quit being a doofus, But the magnitude of this whole thing that God's called us to, I mean, for every saved person listening, you carry the gospel within you. I mean, everywhere you go, that old song, "Let Others See Jesus in You." My goodness, there are some times when maybe you could see Jesus in me, but there's some times when you'd be like, do you even believe there is a Jesus? And so there's this large magnitude of the weight of it all, and then yet the simplicity of it all, if we just keep trusting him and doing what he asks us to do. And again, I go back to these passages in Leviticus. It's very detailed. I mean, it's very detailed. If this guy does this, then he goes to kill a bull, and the fatty entrails have to be washed, and the liver fat has to be over here, and then they got to burn. But if it's this kind of sin, well, you can keep the hide and bury the horns and all. I mean, it's so detailed. That's why you get kind of lost in it. But what that really points to is really how bad our sin is and how awful it is. But again, how many opportunities God is giving this group of people who he's already saved, he's already cleansed through the water, he's given them the 10 commandments. Let me give you 10 commandments. Go and live by these 10 commandments. And they screw it up time and time
There's
again.
only 10.
Before Moses even came down from the mountain, they were screwing it up.
Yeah, and so it just amazes me that Leviticus is really about the God of second chances.
Hey, isn't it okay to say that there are things in the Bible, like in Leviticus, that are boring? I don't think that's sacrilegious to say that. I mean,
well, there are definitely
things that are
that we don't understand.
Yeah, so you're reading and you have to labor through it. I don't think there's anything wrong with considering some of that boring, because boring is just a word that kind of means it's not interesting to you. Entrails of animals is not interesting to me. I'm just telling you.
It's as you read, there's a couple of passages of scripture that I just
deal with that
reading.
one.
Yeah,
there's some stuff that I'm just like, oh. It is my habit to read the Bible cover to cover every year. And so after a while, you begin
It's also your habit to remind us so that we feel horrible about it.
No, that's
Isn't
not
it?
what I mean. That's not what I mean.
Pride is a sin.
No, that's not at all what I mean. Because I'm going somewhere with that. Because
well, we've missed you.
When you start out in Genesis, it's a story, it's a narrative, and it's easy to read. Exodus, the same. But Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus is the third book, and it's all about like skin boils and mold in your house and all this crazy stuff, and it's just hard to read. Leviticus is one of those places that is hard to read. Very, very exceptionally specific about what you're supposed to bring as an acceptable offering, and one of the aspects of that is, as you bring your offering, you were the one that was required to kill the offering. Now, put yourself, if you could, in the Old Testament time period. You had to do this. You had the burnt offering. Every year that you would bring, Day of Atonement, you'd bring it, and you had to make sure that the animal fit these very specific boundaries and guidelines. And you're bringing it there, and put yourself in this setting. The town of Jerusalem would swell to like 1 million people or more whenever they would have the Day of Atonement. And so you're going there and you're standing in line. And you've got all these people that are bringing their sacrifices. They've been very careful to make sure that they didn't even break a bone. And they're standing there in line, 1 million people. And they didn't have roads like we do nowadays. It was a dirt road. And so they're walking. And the dust is getting kicked up in the air. And you can feel the tension building in the atmosphere. You can hear the animals, and they're starting to get nervous, and they're starting to bleat. And as you get closer, you can just feel the tension building. And you have this very visceral smell that's going on. You're smelling the dust. You're beginning to hear the animals bleat. And then as you get closer, you're beginning to smell even the effects of sacrifice. And the smoke is in the air. And it's just a very visceral response that you have to that. And it's not just a one-time thing. You're doing it again and again and again and again. And by the time you get to the middle of your life, you begin to see the effects of sin. You begin to feel the magnitude of it. You begin to feel how much of a permanent aspect of your life it is. And there's just no way that you can permanently settle it. And as you're reading through the Old Testament, you start getting to the end of the Old Testament, and you begin to think, is this all that there is? Is this all that there is? Is it always going to be like this? I'm going every single year. I'm trying to get my sins covered, and I'm messing up every single year. And if you get to the end of the Old Testament, you begin to wonder, is there any hope? And then you turn the page from the Old Testament to the New Testament, and it just has a different feel. When you get to Jesus, it just has a different feel. You're no longer bringing the sacrifice. You're no longer responsible for covering your own sins. There is somebody who lived a life you couldn't live, died a death that you deserved to die, to give you a gift that you did not deserve to have. And it just feels different as soon as you turn the page from the Old Testament to the New Testament. So I think that's part of what God wants us to experience in Leviticus, is just the hopelessness of fixing this problem on our own.
Two things.
Yeah.
One is you stole my thunder to clean up my boring statement. I was getting to there that the meaning of what's going on in those boring passages is not boring. The meaning is pretty good, but the details sometimes are boring.
It's visceral. I don't even know what
Visceral.
that means, but
We'll look that up later. Right? It's a good word.
Well, it's actually,
it got my attention.
Viscera is the stuff inside of you.
Number two, this is out of order. You know, I like to, at the end of this Bible talk, for somebody to kind of maybe talk to somebody who might be listening to this, who's not all soaked up in church already, but who's kind of looking for some answers. I like to go there. I think it's appropriate for us to do it, and I think we should always do that. But here in the middle of this conversation, I think you just laid out the picture of a person who is trying all their life to fill that void inside themselves by themselves, and they're trying to check off all the boxes and everything. And they're at a point possibly where they're just really tired and weary of that, and then turn the page, like you said, and then all of a sudden, for that person, I'm trying to compare this to this person's life, which is what I was thinking while you're telling that, but all of a sudden, there's some relief there, and you don't have to carry that yourself anymore. Is that not the good thing about accepting this? This is not out of place. This is exactly in the right place, I think, because I think you just told a picture for all of us right there. Did you not?
Oh, I was hoping to.
Well, the Old Testament, and this is where people miss this sometimes. The New Testament doesn't replace the Old Testament. Jesus is the fulfillment of the sacrifices in the Old Testament. Well, like I said, there's 5, and you can break some of those down where you can get to like 7 to 10 different types of sacrifices that they were doing on these special days, but also every day. And again, it shows us the magnitude and the hopelessness of our sin. But the same thing that God is going to do through the cross, he was already doing for them back then. The sacrifice of the lamb couldn't eternally fix you, but it fixed you for the moment. It covered you. And that word atonement means to cover. And some people say, oh, well, the Old Testament, that just covered the sins until Jesus could actually pay for them. Well, the word atonement literally means to pay for. It literally means to pay for. So that animal paid for your sins as a foreshadowing of what Christ was going to do. This one we had to redo over and over and over and over and over again. This is a once for all when Christ dies on the cross. So they did point to Christ, but let's don't miss that God's remedy for me breaking the law was this blood sacrifice and the rituals and the stuff that they went through. I don't know about you guys, but it scares me when you want to go back and find out who I am in my history, like who ancestryandme.com, whatever that thing's called.
Right.
It scares me to death. But even more scary is what my sin has been in my past, and even what it's going to be tomorrow. But this wonderful thing we call salvation is that Christ has paid for my past sins, my present sins, and my tomorrow sins, so that I don't have to run and get a lamb and stand in line and try to think through how did I mess up? Did you know one of them was for unintentional? Bring your sacrifice for unintentional sins. Oh man, I didn't know I did that. Exactly. God's like, your sin is so bad that you don't even know when you do it sometimes. So this sacrifice is so that I don't smite you for your unintentional sins. So it's a really cool story. It really is.
That's not boring.
No.
So for anybody who's planning on coming at me with a boring statement, I've got back up now.
That's right.
Genesis 1 and 2 there's no sin. And you turn the page, Genesis 3 is all about sin. And sometimes people think that the animal sacrifices came out of nowhere. It just all of a sudden, oh, okay, well, this is how you cover up your sin. That's not the case. Some commentators will disagree with this, but I think it's a very clear understanding that in Genesis 3, God is the one that did the first sacrifice. Yeah. How were Adam and Eve covered? How they knew that they were naked. Before sin, they didn't realize that. It wasn't an issue for them. And then sin enters the world. How do they know they've sinned? How was it that they got covered in their sinfulness? God is the one that made that first sacrifice.
Yeah, there's the animal cover. So there were two naked people, and all of a sudden they're covered in fur. Mm-hmm. Well, the only way you get a fur off an animal is you kill it, or God had to just create a fur coat. Mm-hmm. And I think it much more points to sacrifice.
Yep.
Are y'all trying to say that all this stuff in the Bible is kind of connected?
Absolutely.
66 books, 3 different continents, multiple centuries, and even millennia separate time and space. And they all say the same thing. Mm-hmm. All these different authors, all these different locations, all these different time periods, they all say the same thing. That doesn't happen on accident. It's God. It's on purpose.
It's really hard to make that argument, I think. Anybody that's arguing that has not paid much attention to it. I mean, to try to argue that all that stuff is not connected, a coincidence, is not a highly intelligent person. I'll just say it that way.
We can see even in our own lifetime.
That was a little rough.
If you've ever, we all grew up Star Wars. What a great movie. And then you start having, the second one and the third one, and then they start going back to number 5, and it's kind of weird, but that's one author who had one idea, who had written all of these things and just decided to release them at different phases. But the Bible would be like me writing something 200 years ago and then handing it to you and say, okay, now you start writing, and then hand it to another guy 300 years on a different part of the planet. Now you start writing. It's a different scenario. But what we see from Lucas, who had the original vision and how he wanted Star Wars laid out, and what we as the consumers get, God had an original vision of what he wanted his story to be, how he wanted it laid out, who was going to write certain parts, and when they were going to be written. And so you're absolutely right. It's an amazing. You would almost have to just stick your head in the sand to say that it's not an amazing book.
I think that's correct. Well, thanks for taking us right back to the front, because that's partly why I like to talk about that. It is an amazing book. You go about your day, even if you're all churched up, and you don't really think so much about that all the time. But when you do stop and think about just what that is, what all's in there, how it got there, and how it always hammers you. If you let it, it always hammers you in a good way.
Yep.
Just a good book.
It is.
Did we get where y'all were going?
I think so. Welcome to the book of Leviticus.
Leviticus is a little heavy at times. And speaking of Leviticus, I'm going to take a break, come back, play Inny or Outty, and I'll have one for you guys from Leviticus, since we just talked about that. Maybe. We'll be back.
Hey everybody, it's time to play America's almost favoriteest new game show, Inny or Outty, where we challenge our guests to figure out if a phrase we give them is actually in the Bible or out of the Bible. Sharpen your wits, guest. You're about to be in the hot seat of Bible stuff, because you're the next contestant on Inny or Outty. Here's Mike.
Inny or Outty is also amazing, like the Bible. Well, I'm not saying Inny or Outty is like the Bible.
Well, it's about the Bible.
Yes, all the things come from the Bible. Okay, listen, we're just going to play America's almost favorite new game show, Inny or Outty, which, as we always say, needs no explanation. It's self-explanatory, as they say, whoever they is. So what we'll do
we
is...
We do know we're going to have some funnication.
That's right. We will have funnication. Have you been here since Funnucation came around? Funnucational?
I think so.
Okay, all right.
I'm not. I mean, it's been a little while.
It's been a little while ago.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're still using it, just so you know. Anyway, so one of us will give something that we say is either in or out of the Bible, and the other two will try to guess. Is that an Inny or
an Outty? Right, pretty simple.
Yes. No explanation necessary. Jason,
Yeah.
it's so exciting to have you back.
Uh-huh.
I think I'll start.
Okay.
Wow, wait.
Sorry, I need to wait till you have that coffee out.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm going to start because I'm going to save you for a second because I think it's going to be good because you've had all this time, as H was
Well,
saying.
you had a Leviticus thing, so you're ready for us.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
mine kind of flows right in there.
It does.
You know, it's the season for a pesky insect that
Cicadas?
shows up. Yes. I don't know because I didn't research it good enough. But I don't know if they are the same or not. But is the word katydid in the Bible? Is katydid an Inny or an Outty? Are they the same? Is a katydid and a cicada? They're kind of the same, aren't they? Or are they
I don't
different?
think so. I think they're different animals.
Okay, well, scratch that.
Or a locust.
Yeah, we'll just talk about they're all locusts. So the Inny or Outty is katydid, that word in the Bible.
That's what Neil says a lot. Who made this mess?
Katie did. That's pretty clever. Katie is Neil's wife.
She did that.
That is pretty clever.
It's a good dad joke.
Okay, so there you go, fellas. Speak amongst yourselves.
I don't think it is, unless it's like an offhand translation.
Which ones are offhand?
Well,
Always
it would
interested
probably
in that.
be something along the line. It's a paraphrastic, it's a paraphrase.
Wait
What?
a minute. Paraphrastic?
Yeah,
I don't even think that's a word.
it is. It's a
We
paraphrase.
wouldn't know, so we can get away with it.
It's a paraphrase. It's not literal.
Uh-huh. What was
You
it?
have paraphrastic.
Phrastic.
Paraphrastic.
With an F or a PH?
PH.
Okay. Because that seems smarter if you use a PH than just use an F. I'm just
So
saying.
Frankfurter should be with
PhD
a PH.
stands for pretty huge
It makes it sound a little more sophisticated.
Frankfurter.
I don't know, unless it's like Living Bible or Cotton Patch Gospel or something like that. I don't think it's.
Oh, wait, I asked it. I'd forgotten who asked the thing. It was
You
me.
asked it,
Yeah.
yeah.
But he
So-
said, I have something from the book of Leviticus, which makes me think he's read it in the book of Leviticus.
Well, let me give you a little bit. Let me give you a little backstory so you can think more properly about it. Katydid, if it's in there, is amongst a list of locusts.
Yeah,
So,
there's
a list.
the list of.
Ironically, it's a list of locusts you can eat.
And they're talking about the.
Yes.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so is katydid one of them?
I did research once, and I was wondering because that list of where it's talking about the different types of locusts.
Yes.
There's something that happens when there's a swarm of them that they switch from one type of locust to another just based on behavioral. It's a behavioral issue for some of them.
You mean like a city locust or a country locust?
No, I mean
Like
like they
that?
can go from completely docile
Yep.
to completely destroying everything.
Oh, really?
And it's a behavioral thing that switches in them.
Huh.
My kids do that. That ain't nothing. One of them takes one of your potatoes off French fry. Oh man, they go crazy.
I like to steal my kids' food when it's
Katydid's not in the Bible.
I don't think it is unless
I mean, that's a country. That's an Arkansas word.
It does sound kind of Arkansas. Have y'all ever eaten a chocolate-covered grasshopper? I have not either.
No.
You know what? At some point, I'm going to order some of those. You can order them on Amazon, and we'll try one.
No,
I don't think
I'm
I've
not
ever
in
had
it.
the chocolate covered grasshopper. No.
I can't do it.
Tarantula, yes. Grasshopper, no.
I'm not sure I could.
Katydid.
Katydid.
I don't
Is
think it
Katydid
is.
an Inny or an Outty?
I don't think so.
No, we're gonna say
You're going to say
out.
the official
Which
answer.
version are you using over there as you pick it up?
I'm using the hardcore Southern Baptist
There we go.
HC. No, this is the NIV. Yes, this is the NIV.
Nearly inspired version.
Nearly inspired. Let's just read the list. How about it? It's Leviticus 11:21. There are, however, some winged creatures that walk on all fours that you may eat. Those have jointed legs for hopping on the ground. Of these, you may eat any kind of locust, katydid, cricket, or grasshopper. It's in there. I was equally as shocked as you guys are because I thought katydid was an Arkansas type word, or maybe Middle Tennessee, possibly even Texas.
See, I typically read the ESV, and
What does it say?
It was 11:21. It says, winged insects, all fours, yada, yada, yada. Of them you may eat locusts of any kind, the bald locust, the cricket, the grasshopper.
The bald locust.
The bald
It must
locust.
be a Katydid. I bet a Katydid ain't got no hair.
Are you looking at a different version, H?
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
Mine's ESV.
Oh,
That's
you're
the
looking
one
at the same
I
one as
just read,
him.
Hmm.
I wonder if it's in the King James. Can you look at that real quick?
Sure.
You know, because like I say, it ain't the Bible if it ain't King James. Is that what somebody says or something? No.
Katydid. But that's that's
Isn't that odd?
NIV is a pretty popular version.
Yeah, it's a little, yeah.
It says
is.
bald locust in there, too.
In King James?
Yeah.
So I wonder why the NIV uses Katydid. Because it does sound like a very modern word
It
to me.
really does. I want to see what the Living Bible says.
I can't
Oh, the
imagine a
Message.
bunch
Let's
of
go with the
Jewish people
Message.
walking around saying the word Katydid. I mean, if they did, they'd put a in there somewhere. Don't they do that?
You know what? The message
Yes.
says Katydids. Yeah.
Well, that don't count. Though.
See, I've been doing so good. Ricciardi comes back, and
Yes.
I went with him.
There you go.
I screw up everything.
Well, he sounds so convincing,
He did.
though. And we know that he
Really,
reads it.
I don't know. It's been a minute since I read the Holman.
The hardcore Christian, hardcore Southern
My
Baptist.
gut said,
My gut. Okay,
Oh
speaking
wait,
of
you
that,
said it was NIV, right?
this was the NIV.
It's been a long time since I read the NIV.
What does that mean? Okay, Jason, it's your turn.
I got a
Stump
good
us.
one. Okay.
All right, we're ready.
So these are all characters from the movie The Little Mermaid.
Oh yeah.
One of them is Inny, and the rest of them are Outty. All right.
Okay.
Flounder, Scuttle, Eric, and Ariel. One of them is Inny, the rest of them are Outty.
Wait a minute.
Uh-huh.
I thought this was Bible stuff. Is the
It
little?
is.
It is.
those are 4 characters in The Little Mermaid.
In The Little Mermaid.
And one of them
is in the Bible and the
mentioned
other's
Oh, I
not.
missed that part. I was still
Now
thinking
keep in
about
mind,
Katydids.
I'm just going to let you know that flounder is a nautical term. Like if a boat is floundering, it's getting
I thought it was a
different.
fish.
Scuttle is when the boat is wrecked and you
Right.
just get
scuttle
rid of
it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll just throw that out
Like
there
how
before.
smooth,
yeah.
right then. Like I've been saying all my life. Scuttle that boat over there. Would you?
Eric and
Get the
Ariel.
flounders out of it,
Eric
though.
and Ariel have got to be. They can't be in there.
Eric and Ariel?
Yeah.
Ariel. You didn't say Muriel, did you?
I did not say. I don't think Muriel's in there either.
Eric, it sounds.
That's too
Eric
English.
is like tricky, though.
It's too English.
Flounder, I can't picture. Well, Flounder and Scuttle.
Flounder,
Wasn't that a
Scuttle,
song?
Eric,
I thought of
and Ariel.
lobster, and then I felt flounder.
Is that Ray Stevens? Is that?
Ariel sounds like it could be in there,
It does.
doesn't it? That's kind of a gut. It doesn't. You think Scuttle is?
Scuttle.
Really?
Absolutely. I don't know.
Katydid was in there. If Katydid's in there, Scuttle.
I
could
mean,
be.
I'm 0 for 1 today. What the heck?
Well, this is tough right here
It is.
because
So Jason on his work release
Yes.
because he's been hurt, has been watching Disney movies.
on his Achilles release, and watches Little Mermaid over and over because he does that, you know, like with the Bible every year. Scuttle, Flounder, Eric,
And Ariel.
and Ariel. Do you have a gut reaction? I like to go with gut reaction sometimes just to kind of get a feel for things.
Well, he was giving us definitions of scuttle and flounder,
He did, didn't he?
so I was like, maybe scuttle.
Well, yeah, because they were nautical people at times.
Yeah.
Some of them had boats.
I mean, flounder just making me want to go Red Lobster.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
The cheddar biscuits that they have there.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
why?
they're pretty good.
Why did you bring that
so
up?
good.
Why?
You can
So
make those
good.
at home, you know.
You can, and they'll sell those in the store, and they're pretty good facsimile. So
Yes.
I'll be right back.
I'm all distracted now.
Scuttle.
I think I would go with you on Scuttle because it does not sound like a word that would be in the Bible.
No, that's the one that's in there.
Oh. Okay, I'll go with you because it's just
I'm so
odd enough.
confused.
It's just odd enough that it ought to be in there. So we're saying Scuttle is
Sure.
an Inny.
Yeah.
Yes, Jason, you hear that?
Yeah.
Scuttle.
Scuttle.
Okay. Isaiah 29:1. Ariel, Ariel, the city where David encamps.
Well,
And in verse 2, yet I will distress Ariel. And it's mentioned a couple other places in the Bible.
Is it spelled the same way?
It is. That one completely threw me for a loop. And I did look, and I did not see scuttle or flounder in there. And I was thinking that maybe that they would be, but I didn't see it. And you're right, Eric is kind of a modern
well,
English.
scuttle is just odd enough that it could have been in there.
Right.
I was thinking, like, maybe when they're talking about one of the other nations, maybe there was all these
Like scuttle
seafaring
boats.
nations.
I thought Ursula.
I was thinking maybe in the book of Acts when Paul's ship hits the hurricane, and I was thinking maybe in there, but I did not see it anywhere.
Lion King is not a story from the Bible, is it?
Oh, it's from Africa.
I knew that. I was just throwing that out there to see if anybody was paying attention. Okay, so we had 2 losses.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a day. Welcome back.
Right?
Welcome back.
But it was fun. I mean, once again, here's some interesting information that we may or may not use someday in some
Probably
conversation
never will.
somewhere. But listen, we'll be ready if it comes up.
Yeah.
If we can remember. If we remember.
That's my problem.
It does happen. Okay. Good round. We'll take a break, come back and tell you goodbye.
Oh, wow. What a great contestant and a fine sport today on Inny or Outty, America's almost favorite new game show. Study up, future guest people. You're next in the hot seat for Inny or Outty.
Anyway, thanks for being with us. Jason Ricciardi, it's good to have you back.
It's good to be here.
We missed you.
Your aim is bound to improve from this distance, though.
Possibly. We'll see. If you show back up next week, you'll know that everything's fine.
We can paraphrase it.
Paraphrase the what?
I don't know.
No, it wasn't paraphrase. What was the word?
Paraphrase.
Paraphrastic. That's just never heard
It's
that.
just a different part of speech. It's paraphrase, but it's a different part of speech.
Obviously, but
I like paraphrastical.
hey, H, let's use that word like for the next week. Just in
like-
talking to people,
like
just
we do.
bring it up,
Yeah.
and people will start thinking, I've missed something in my life.
Then you can tell them the word of day toilet paper's working for you.
Yes, that where you got that.
Sure.
Anyway, good to have you back.
Good to be here.
And this is why. H, good to have you back.
Good to be here.
And this is why again.
I know, right?
And I'm glad I was here because that's why. It's anyway, we'll see you next time. And remember, folks, we are just Christian people.
Trying not to.
See, still, we haven't stopped trying
I think we're
since you've been
starting
gone.
something here.
What about not cussing?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what we're supposed to be encouraging.
Just scuttle right in there.
Don't flounder. See you next time.
Mike the Baptist.